Hi there, this is Esther from Stampin Style Creations. I'm so glad you could join with me today. I got to choose the colours for the June Colour Challenge on the Facebook group Stampin' Up Colour Challenge, and I've gone for Merry Merlot, Rococo Rose, Grey Granite and Night of Navy. Now, it was a choice of any pink, as we were aware that not everybody could get hold of the pinks. I'm using the Free as a Bird stamp set and the matching nesting framelit dies, or the Bird Ballard stamp set, to cut out a shape from that set. It's the 4" by 2" nesting die. Then I'm just layering some paper underneath and using my inks as a palette, so just squashing the ink pads together to get some colour onto the lid, opening them up already and using my Aqua pen to do a colour wash. I decided I would start with the background first and then try and add the colour then onto the shape afterwards, roughly in the same way. So these are one of these cards that I'm making up as I go along. I've got an idea in my head, but you might see me chopping and changing. Next I'm going in with the Merry Merlot. I was a bit surprised how light pink it came out, but I carried on with that and did the second layer and merging the colours together so they look like they're blending together. Then going in with the Rococo Rose. And I decided the colour wasn't deep enough, so I'm coming back in with that Merry Merlot to make it look more contrasting than the Rococo Rose colour. And then last but not least, using the Smokey Slate for the last colour in the challenge. I'm drying both sides to get this dried quicker so I can get on and work with it. So just using my heat gun with that. Using the Rococo Rose to stamp those blossom images and just colouring it in with the Merry Merlot to give more detail in the centre and on the stamen. I do tend to get a bit over carried away when I do watercolouring, so I've had to kind of go back in and just keep trying to add a bit more colour to make that stand out. So we're just going ahead and stamping the bird in the Smoky Slate colour, and then I decided also to add some buds to go with the flowers as well. I wanted that bird to have different shading and dimension to it, so I dry off in between with the heat tool and then just keep adding more Smoky Slate and adding darker areas to the top and the bottom of the bird. I fussy cut out some leaves. I did manage to miss a step in this. I've already stamped some leaves in the background of my picture using the Flourish floral thinlits and to cut out these lovely little berries with some silver foil. I did cut out some leaves also in case I used those. And then just putting the embossing buddy all over. I tried to spritz on it, realised that I was using the alcohol spritzer and it needed water. So some of you might have seen this technique before. I've used it on another card, but I'm going to show you again in case you haven't seen it. So just using splashes of water from my hand, and then you can actually just put the embossing powder straight on top of that water. So this is thanks to the co-founder, and she used to be the CEO of Stampin' Up, who I'm sure I saw that tip off her. And it's a great way to get just splatters across your page. So I wanted some smaller splatters, so I've gone in with my Aqua pen and that produces some smaller splatters. So if you want bigger splatters, shake it on with your fingers, smaller splatters with the Aqua pen. So just tapping that across my finger to let that splat onto the paper. There you can see where it's caught the water. Now when you dry this, it does take longer because the process is it has to evaporate the water first. So obviously make sure your heat tool's heated up for a little while before taking it to the paper, and then go around all those areas. You might find that some of the powder comes away because it doesn't have the same stickability as with Versamark. And there's the great effect. It's kind of like a random splattered effect, and I love the way it looked. So bringing back all my bits and pieces and just arranging them where I want them. And this is unfortunately retired, this silver thread now, but I wanted it to just add an extra look to my card. So just using some glue dots to help stick that thread down. I tied it in a figure of 8, so then you can fan out the thread on each end. I decided to rough up the edges. This is quite a grungy kind of card, so just using the edge of my scissor blades and running that across the edge of the card. I added some curls around both two corners, not both corners. Again, just to give it that kind of aged, slightly aged look. Then I found the detailed laser cut paper on my desk, which I used for another project. And I thought, oh, let's add more and more. So I'm literally just pulling leaves off rather than just trying to cut around them. It works quite well just to tug at it and to pull off the leaves. And I thought I'd just have the leaves to incorporate in the background just to add even more detail. Just carefully going in with some Tombow glue to stick those down. Adding a touch of silver in any project, or any other kind of metallic, I think just helps the luxurious look of a card. So I'm using the back of my Aqua pen just to press it into my piercing tool, and this just made the flowers a bit more 3D and give it some more dimension. And with some of the flowers, I think the bigger ones, I use some Stampin' dimensionals to pop those up. And same with the head of the bird. And then the body was stuck down. Added a little bit of Wink of Stella as I was throwing everything else at this card, and just tapping on my Wink of Stella brush to add some sparkly splatters. It probably doesn't pick up on camera, but just to add to the whole effect. And then I thought, oh, I could add some pearls just to complete the middle of those flowers and just add that luxurious look. Now I'm just testing out the dimensionals to see if that dimension was high enough for me. So I lay the whole lot of dimensionals underneath to see. I decided, because I've worked so much on the background, I really wanted the front of this card to pop. So I'm using the sticky foam strips, just cutting them into pieces and laying them on the back. And these are 3mm thick as opposed to the 2mm thick of the dimensionals. I failed to mention that's shimmer white cardstock I've used for the background and for the watercolour. So it's a great surface for when you're doing watercolouring. And there's our finished card. I hope you've enjoyed watching this tutorial. I really enjoyed making this card, and as I said, I had a bit of a vision in my head, and although it wasn't necessarily the colours I was going to use, I love the way that this has turned out. I hope you've enjoyed watching. Do click the bell and subscribe to my channel, and you can catch me on further videos. Do give me a thumbs up if you've liked this particular card, and comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Have a good day.